But so, again, the State of the Union, I have to tell you, my overall reaction was sort of, it was fine. It was fine, I guess. But as I've said before, time and time again on the show, the truth is I really don't buy anything that President Obama says anymore. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. But just let me be clear right here. Just because I don't believe it doesn't mean I don't welcome some of the rhetoric that was used in the speech, because I do. Because let's be clear, it was a populist speech. It was a very populist speech, and for that fact, let's just take a moment and thank not the president for that, but let's thank the Occupy movement. So thank you, Occupy movement. Thank you, occupiers everywhere, for shifting the conversation, shifting the rhetoric, because, completely honest here, if it wasn't for Occupy, there is no way in hell President Obama says things like this in the speech on Tuesday. In the speech, he called economic fairness the, quote, defining issue of our time. Which it is. It is the defining issue of our time. But again, economic fairness was not part of the national conversation before the Occupy movement. It wasn't. You all know this. You all remember this. The conversation was all about austerity. It was all about how much should we cut? Now we have President Obama saying things like this in his State of the Union. He said on Tuesday, quote, "We can either settle for a country where a shrinking number of people do really well while a growing number of Americans barely get by, or we can restore an economy where everyone gets a fair shot, everyone does their fair share, and everyone plays by the same set of rules." Again, populist, Occupy-inspired language. He would not be saying this if the conversation hadn't been shifted. He also said, quote, "Now, you can," I really like this quote. He said, quote, "Now you can call this class warfare all you want, but asking a billionaire to pay at least as much as his secretary in taxes, most Americans would call that common sense." Again, a good line. Good populist, Occupy-inspired line. And, I personally would rather see him say, yeah, it is a class war, but it's the 1% who started the class war. But again, it's a good line, I'm fine with it, that's great. He called again for letting the Bush tax cuts expire for the rich, which, again, as I've said before on the show, really they are, I'm going to call it like it is. They are the Bush-Obama tax cuts for the rich. Until they expire, until Obama makes them expire, they are the Bush-Obama tax cuts for the rich because President Barack Obama extended them. Barack Obama extended Bush's tax cuts for the rich, so they are the Bush-Obama tax cuts for the rich. And look, I'm glad he wants to stop them now, but the fact of the matter is, he promised that he'd let them expire before, and then he extended it. So what, I'm supposed to believe that he's going to make them expire now? I don't believe it, and that's the problem. That is the whole entire problem with Obama. The language is great, but without the action behind them, they're just words. But we can welcome the language because, again, making the fact that the president's saying it is great. Because if he wasn't saying it, we'd be totally screwed. I mean, we're totally screwed anyway. Let's be honest with each other. We're totally screwed. But look, so the one thing I actually want to get to about the State of the Union, the most interesting thing that came out of the speech to me was that President Obama announced the creation of a new Justice Department mortgage crisis task force. He said in the speech, quote, "This new unit will hold accountable those who broke the law, speed assistance to homeowners, and help turn the page on an era of recklessness that hurt so many Americans." Okay, so let's dissect that a little bit. I like the hold accountable part. I like that part. However, when you get to the end, when you say things like turn the page, I gotta tell you, I start to get a little worried. worried. I started to get a little wary. I started to not believe it because to me that sounds a hell of a lot like we need to look forward, not look backward. We need to turn the page, not look forward. We need to look forward, not backward. Which is that whole thing. That whole thing has been Barack Obama's MO his entire presidency, which is not prosecuting elites who commit crimes. Because really, I have to ask this. I have to ask this. What exactly does accountable mean to President Obama? What does it mean? What does it actually mean? Does it actually mean prosecutions? Does it mean jail time for those whose recklessness and lawbreaking destroyed our economy, that cost millions of Americans their homes? What does that mean? What does it actually mean? Because, okay, so look, it could be a good thing. I mean, it could be a good thing, but at the same time that he's announcing this, supposedly the White House they are reportedly still trying to push a ridiculous sweetheart settlement deal for the big banks. They're supposedly still trying to push that sweetheart deal where these big banks that caused this crisis would get off just paying a small fine and avoiding prosecutions. He's doing both things at once, supposedly. Also, again, Obama actually said in the speech, quote, that, quote, the banks will repay a deficit of trust. Okay. How? How exactly are the banks going to do that? And forget that. Forget how. What about why? Why would the big banks do that? Why would the banks do that? Does Barack Obama seriously really believe, does he believe that Wall Street are going to repay the deficit of trust out of what? The goodness of their hearts? They're going to do that. They're going to trust, Obama's going to trust that Wall Street is going to start doing the right thing? Are you friggin' kidding me? Look, former prosecutor Neil Barofsky, he tweeted this about the proposed task force, the proposed mortgage task force. He said, quote, if the task force is created either because the DOJ, which is the Department of Justice, either because the DOJ hasn't done an investigation or because a 3-year DOJ investigation is a failure, how does Holder keep his job? That's a great question, isn't it? That's a great question. And look, if it ends up that this task force is for real, great, awesome, wonderful. If bankers are started to be prosecuted, amazing, awesome. But he raises an amazing point. What the hell has the DOJ been doing for the last 3 years about this? What the hell has Eric Holder been doing about this for the last 3 years? You know the answer. Nothing. They've been doing nothing. So why now? Why now? Frankly, we know the answer. It's because the conversation has shifted. Because the conversation has shifted and Obama's up for re-election. The conversation shifted because of the pressure from Occupy. And because Obama knows that economic populism is really the only chance he has at keeping his job, at being re-elected, is the only reason this is happening now. But then you have to ask yourself, if that is the motivation, if the motivation is strictly political and it's not actually about bringing to justice the people who caused this, because again, this crisis did happen 4 years ago, everybody. 4 years ago. If the motivation isn't justice, just how good will this task force actually be? Hey, maybe it'll be good. Maybe. I mean, New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman is heading it up. And he has frankly been, a champion on actually trying to do this. He's loudly opposed the sweetheart deals for big banks. He's actually trying, supposedly he actually is trying to come together with prosecutions. So perhaps it's going to be legit. But here's the thing. Here's the ultimate thing here. Personally, and I think many of you also are at this point too, I am way past the stage of trusting President Obama. I'm also past the stage of trust but verify with President Obama. And the truth is, the only stage that's left for me, and frankly, it's the only stage that there ever really should be anyway for any of us. This is something that this is the only stage we should ever actually be in at all. The only stage that there ever should be is verify. Just verify.